Some might say that the EPCR Challenge Cup is not a big deal. Tell that to the fans of the Sharks and Gloucester. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Champions Cup final, it's obviously in the shadow of its big brother happening on Saturday, but for these two clubs this is still an absolutely massive game, and I would love to have seen one of the Irish provinces get into this as well. Getting your hands on European silverware is tough, whether it's this competition or the Champions Cup. It's not an easy thing to do, and we haven't, like, outside of Leinster, it's been a long time since we had an Irish province lift any European silverware. But we do have a URC team in the final, so no prizes for guessing who I'm going to be cheering for in that final. As I said, for Gloucester and for the Sharks, this is the highlight of their season, and so it should be as well. Both teams in the knockout stages really did kind of target getting to the final and getting their hands on that trophy now. And for one of the two teams on Friday night, that dream is going to come true. So we're going to have a look, first of all, at the kind of basics of where and when, and then we look at the teams. We'll then look at what changes have been made since the semi-final, and then the form of the teams and how they got to the final as well. So the basics, first of all, it's on Friday 24th of May. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff if you're in Ireland or the UK. It's at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And I liked, somebody actually said that one of these two teams is gonna win a trophy at that stadium before Tottenham do. Then also on TV or whatever, internet broadcasts or whatever, it's on TNT Sports, France TV, beIN Sports, EPC Rugby.tv, and Super Sports. So I mentioned in the preview of the semi-finals that I did at the start of the week that it's a little bit disappointing that there isn't an Irish broadcaster showing the final live. I'm sure if there had been an Irish team in there, they probably would have been able to maybe secure some kind of right to do that. Maybe it's in it's some kind of exclusivity or whatever, but for me, being able to watch the big games live on TV, and free to air as well, is a big thing in terms of just growing the game and growing the fan base as well. For me, when I was like younger, kind of like in my late teens into early 20s or so, that's when I got into rugby. I don't come from a rugby background. Where I grew up, nobody played rugby. It was all football, and then in my teenage years where I lived, it was football and it was Gaelic, but there was no rugby really. So it was through watching games on TV, especially like Munster and later then Leinster as well, where my love for the sport basically grew from that. And I'd love that there are more opportunities for the younger generations now to have the same experience and be able to get into the game in the same way as well. But let's talk about this final itself. So it's Gloucester versus the Sharks, and I think for both of these teams, this is going to be the big game of the season. Obviously, Gloucester, they have won the Premiership Cup or whatever it's called earlier on in the season. Not doing all that well in the Premiership at the moment, and same with the Sharks. Not a great domestic season, but for both teams, a chance to get their hands on a trophy, and that would be massive for either of these teams, and something that if you're a fan of either of those teams, whether you're gonna watch on the internet or down the local bar or at home on your TV or live in the stadium, it's going to be very memorable, because getting to European finals is not something that's going to happen to teams every year. Now and then we have like teams who, will get to successive finals. We've seen that, with the Champions Cup, etc. But that doesn't last for very long. And, having been, as I said, not from a kid, but still a very long time being a rugby fan, I know that, it's ebbs and flows. Your team can be up there with the best, and they can be down there with the also-rans, and it doesn't take that many years for the situation to change, especially if it's changing from good to bad. And, you've got to make the most of the chances that you get and enjoy it. So whether your team on Friday night wins or loses, just enjoy the occasion, because you don't know when the next time. Obviously, they could get there next year. We saw with Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup as well in the last few years that you can have repeat teams getting to the final. But as I said, it still can be a rare thing for your club. So my advice, just enjoy it, enjoy the occasion, and hopefully it comes out the right result for you. But if not, hopefully you'll still have some good memories of it anyway. So we're going to look at the two teams, and first of all, we look at the teams. We'll talk about what changes they've made from their semi-finals, both enforced and in terms of just general selection. Then we'll talk about how they got to the final and their form coming into the final. And then at the last, then I'll make a prediction. I made a prediction early on in the week, and I'm still in my head thinking about, after seeing the teams, what my prediction is going to be. But we're going to start with the designated home team, which is Gloucester. So fullback, we got Santi Carreras. Right wing, Johnny May. The centres then, Chris Harris and Steb Atkinson. Left wing is Ollie Thornley. The halfbacks, Adam Hastings and Caelan Englefield. The front row is Jamal Ford Robinson, Seb Blake and Fraser Balmain. The second row, Freddie Clark and Arthur Clark. Back row, Ruan Ackerman, Lewis Ludlow and Zach Mercer. On the bench then we have Santi Sakino, Mako Vivas, Kirill Gotevsky. No, I completely butchered his name, sorry. Gotevtsev. I don't watch enough Premiership. I'm sure Gloucester fans know his name off by heart, but not me, unfortunately. Albert Tuisui, Jack Clement, Stephen Barney, Max Llewellyn and Josh Hadaway. So we'll look at the Sharks team, and then we'll talk about changes that both teams have made. So Sharks team then, starting from the front row, Oxen Che, Bongi and Banambi, Vincent Koch. The second row then is Evan Etzebeth and Gerbrand Grobler. The back row, James Venter, Vincent Shituka, Pepsi Butalese. Then halfbacks, Grant Williams and Sia Masuku. Left wing is Makazola Mapimpi. The centres, Francois Venter and Ethan Hooker. Right wing is Werner Koch. And the fullback is Afaleli Fassi. On the bench then we have Mbata, Mchunu, Jacobs, Labushange, Richardson, Wright, Bosch and Cater. Okay, so what changes have been made to the teams? Let's have a look at that. So first of all, with Gloucester, so we got Santi Carreras is in at fullback for them. So, that will be a kind of welcome return to their team really there. Then we have Jamal Ford Robinson up from the bench at loose head, and Vivas drops down to the bench. And same at tight head. Balmain is on, in the starting team, and Gotovstev drops to the bench. Art Clark then into the second row, and Max Llewellyn and Josh Hadaway come onto the bench. For the Sharks then, Grobler is on for Van Herden, but he did replace Van Herden like after 3 minutes of the semi-final, so he played pretty much the entire semi-final anyway. Venter in at 12 because Hooker moves to 13 for the injured Lekanyuam. Dylan Richardson comes onto the bench. He had a great performance against Cardiff. And then Kerwin Bosch and Edwin Cater also onto the bench there too. I think Cater, was it him? I think he played against Cardiff too. So those are our two teams there. Both kind of for what the teams have played through the tournament. I think they're both pretty strong teams. And it's something as well. You look at their league position. We're going to look at that now, but their league position kind of belies their performances for both teams really in this competition. But let's have a look at where they are. So first of all, Gloucester, they are currently 9th place in the Premiership, and they coming into this as well. A couple of mixed results really. They won, was it 54-14, I think, against who's at Newcastle Falcons, who are bottom of the league, and then the week before that they lost 90 points to 0 against Northampton, who are top of the league. So Gloucester in a big bit of limbo there, because they're a number of points behind. I think Leicester Tigers are the team that are ahead of them currently in the Premiership table, and I'm pretty sure so they're 13 points behind Leicester, and they are 27 points ahead of Newcastle, who are 10th. So in a bit of limbo there really between those two. And then the Sharks, talked about the Sharks. They've been at the bottom of the URC for a long time this season, then steadily climbed their way out, and their uptick in performance kind of coincided as well with them producing performance in this competition as well. But they're coming in on the back, the last two rounds, a close defeat first of all, 24 points to 25 at home against Benetton, and then last week then, so they sent basically the first team to England to prepare for this final, and left kind of academy players at home, and they ended up losing 14 points to 36 against Cardiff Rugby. So Cardiff were on a bit of a downward spiral themselves at that stage, and it was kind of a mini battle between the two for 12th place in the table. So Cardiff look like they've probably secured that spot, unless things go completely the other way in the final round of games. But so Sharks coming in, domestic form not great, and Gloucester mix as well, but it's really their form in this competition that I think is more important. And if we have a look at that, like we look at Gloucester first of all. So in the pool stages, 15-10 against Black Lion, an invited side, and not the most auspicious start for them really, but a win is a win, right? Then much better performance at home, 28-17 against Clermont. And again, Clermont are one of those teams who always take Europe seriously. Then a game that I'm pretty sure I covered on the channel, and it was 21 points to 20 against Edinburgh, and Gloucester, a really great win for them there. Edinburgh, they look like at that stage as well, they were kind of at that point where they're coming off a decent start to the season, and we're wondering whether they were kind of going to fall away the way they did last season as well. So it was a good tussle between those two. And to finish off the pool then, 35 points to 5 against Castra. So excellent results to get through there. Then they face the same team in the round of 16, and it's much closer this time, but Gloucester have what it takes to win that one, 30 points to 25. Quarterfinals then against Ospreys was a big occasion for Ospreys, because Ospreys really have seen a big leap really in their performance compared to last year, but this was just a step too far from Gloucester. Really controlled that game very well, 23 points to 13 in the end. And then again, going against another URC team who've had a decent season, Benetton, they were up in second place in the URC at one point. They have been up and down since then, but still, they've shown that they can go away from home and get results, but not in this one. Gloucester again, controlling the game, 40 points to 23 in the end. So really good performance from them. Then we're going to have a look at how the Sharks did. So Sharks in the pool, first of all against POW at home in Kings Park, 45 points to 5, so fairly easy win for them. Then the Cheetahs, who are an invited side, a South African side as well, not in the URC, but they still were able to put one over on the Sharks, 32 points to 29, and that would have stung the Sharks from that one. In the next game then, 38 points to 7 win against Onyx. And to round out then another URC team, 29 points to 9 win against the Dragons in Wales as well at Rodney Parade. So, mixed, performance really in the pools. Some, really good wins, 3 really good wins, and then what I would say would have been a very disappointing loss for them. Then into the round of 16, another URC team that they faced against, so 47 points to 3 against Zebre. Quarterfinals, yet another URC team, this one much closer, 36 points to 30 against Edinburgh, although Edinburgh did score a couple of late tries to make it, the scoreline seemed a bit closer than it actually was. The Sharks looked fairly comfortable going into kind of the last 10 or 15 minutes of that game. And then the final game then, or the semi-final, should I say, the final game that they played so far was a very close affair, 32 points to 31 against Clermont. And, two teams who really wanted to make that final, and they both showed it in that team. And it was, very enjoyable watch as well. So that's how they've come in to this one. They had a much, tougher semi-final than Gloucester did. And maybe that's going to stand to them well, but we'll have to see really in the final itself. So before we talk about predictions for the game then, let's just see what both camps have been saying, starting with Gloucester. So George Skivington, the director of rugby at Gloucester, has been talking about how he's not feeling pressure for his position despite their league position. They've already got one trophy this season, the Premiership Cup, and now they've got a chance to get another one as well. A direct quote from him, he said, "You play because you want to get to finals at the end of the season, and the lads have earned the right to go to Tottenham and have a crack." So, he feels like the way they've managed their season, he talked about once they knew that the league was kind of gone for them, that they were going to focus on this competition. So that's where their kind of head is. Johnny May as well, he was talking about the previous final that he was in with Gloucester, and he said, I'm very lucky to have won a trophy with Gloucester. You don't know when you're a bit younger how often these opportunities are going to come around. And he was actually talking about the 2015 final of this competition where they beat Edinburgh as well. So it can be kind of once in a career for some players, and for other players it can be never that you get to a final as well. So he's right. It's an occasion that you have to enjoy, whether it's as a fan or a player or whatever, any kind of connection to it, or even just a neutral as well. I just love watching rugby anyway. But he also said, to have a fairy tale, I've almost prevented myself from believing it's possible because I know how cruel rugby can be. And, you couldn't even write it how incredible it would be. So talking about if Gloucester were to actually go ahead and win that final as well on Friday. So you can see how much it means to those players. And the same on the Shark side as well. So Oxen J said, there's a good mood in the camp in the build-up to the final. And he said keeping players calm and everyone focused on what they need to do and how they can help the team. That's the biggest task. That's our biggest task at the moment. And he also said we could be the first South African team to win a European title, which would be absolutely massive as well. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about the fact that the Sharks are in the final, because I think the South African fans definitely have taken to URC rugby. European rugby still has to, give them something to really get excited about. And the Sharks lifting this trophy, I think, could be the start of something massive for them in terms of commitment to European rugby. And then he's also saying, like, it would be an amazing reward if we did it. And again, it's two squads of players who they've been working hard most of the season for very little reward. And sometimes with teams that aren't doing very well in the domestic league, having a run in the European Cup can be almost like a relief in terms of pressure and stuff, because things just keep going wrong for whatever reason in the domestic league. And when they go to Europe, they can kind of leave that, park that, and then perform. And I think that's what both of these teams have done. For the Sharks as well, I think their run in this competition actually helped them in the URC as well, because that's when their domestic form started to pick up as well. Gloucester maybe not so much for them, but still, they did prioritize trying to get their hands on 2 trophies this season. They've got one, and potential to get another one as well. So the next thing then, or kind of the final thing we need to talk about is, who do I think is going to win this game? So, earlier on in the week, I'm pretty sure I was saying that Gloucester would win just based on their performances overall. I think in the knockout stages, they've been played the better knockout rugby, I would say, in terms of they have that ability to control games, from 10 and from 9 better than the Sharks. But the Sharks have that ability to score tries and bursts, and also I think in terms of threat from turnover ball, the Sharks are the better of the two teams. They're much quicker in terms of just hitting that switch to go from defense to attack and exploit opportunities. And if they do get opportunities, I think they're going to get in for scores, and that's going to be Gloucester's main thing, is to deny them those opportunities. We've seen Gloucester, against Ospreys and against Edinburgh as well, making sure that that they play in the we've seen Gloucester, especially against Ospreys, making sure that the game is played in the right areas of the field, and they're not afraid to play for field position and then just apply pressure and wait for scores to come, rather than trying to force the game as well. And maybe that patience is going to help them to get their hands on the second trophy this season, and first European trophy for 9 years as well. But Sharks, they're in this to make history. First South African side, as Oxenche said, to win a European title would be absolutely massive for them. And I think that obviously both teams are chasing a dream, but I think that dream for the Sharks is that motivation for that is going to be what drives them on to win this one. And maybe it's the URC fan in me saying this, but I'm going to back the Sharks for this one. So let me know what your prediction is, and who do you think is going to lift the trophy.